Yo, what's going on? It's Acid, and I hope I'm speaking loud enough. But I wanted to, I guess, get back on here to talk about this. What was it? I think it was an article that I had seen. Some other guys were talking about on YouTube about the one. No, this is what it was. It was specifically that I think someone at Sony recently mentioned about saying that they wanted to try to end the console war, amongst Nintendo, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, all that. They wanted to try to end the console war by having potentially a one home system type deal. And it's funny because this is the exact thing that people have more or less mentioned for years now on this idea of what if it gets to a point of it being, a one home console, type thing. Because what if they all just came together? And just to kind of dive into the idea of it is like the idea of that happening is a great idea. It's a good idea, but it could go either way. So on one side, it could go where if it was to be a one console thing, right? Number one, what would it be called? The Sphere, what would it be called specifically? What would it be called to mix PlayStation brand, Xbox brand, PC, and Nintendo? The thing is, at the end of the day, Nintendo's not going to do it. Nintendo would not mix with them at all, or at least they did. They take a very long time to kind of come around to that same, mentality on, hey, we're gonna agree to come together. And when you think about it, they all do have specific things that they're all really good at. Like for instance, Xbox is the one that we can look at as the power source, right? That's probably one of the things they do best is push tech forward, as they say. Sony is one that you could say they do very well in the sense of, you know, the type of games that they make. They don't really do much specifically themselves when it comes to hardware, but when it comes to the type of games that they do make, as in the high production value third person movie type games like Spider-Man, Last of Us, all those, what's it called? Horizon. Games like those, they could really be that could be their strong suit. The exclusive area too. Now, we all know Nintendo, of course, would be the ones I would say they'd be great practically in every other area. Practically every other area. Meaning, hey, they have probably some of the best exclusives that you can even imagine, especially even in a range of variety. Racing games with Mario Kart, platformers with Mario, Zelda, the open world adventure type games. And they could benefit from it in a lot of ways with the level of power. But we all know how Nintendo works. Nintendo doesn't care about power. They don't care about that. Look at all their last previous systems. They've been extremely successful without having to have this overabundance on focusing on this specs and this teraflop and all this other mess. Not necessary, but they could benefit for it regardless because the developers will have more space, whatever to work with, more power to work with. So it could be a big benefit from it. But the idea of it coming together is just, I doubt that it happens, but more or less is always possible to happen. It's a lot of good that could come from this, meaning specifically this whole thing with the console war. That would that would disappear. The console war would completely disappear, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but in a way, it's always been a thing that people like me have always kind of, thrived off of. Hey, my system is better than yours. My system has better exclusives. Kind of like that little small bit of drama brings the flair to the gaming world in a way. To be like, yeah, my system has this game and yours doesn't. Or my system does this, or my company does this. It just adds a little bit of a drama flair. Not nothing extremely serious, but it is some people that kind of know life this and kind of be like, yeah, they take it more to heart. And I've seen it heavy over what is it, the last at least 10 to 12 years, 10 to 12 years of it. It was really bad. I want to say back in like 2008, 2010, that time frame. It was really bad back in there, especially on YouTube. It was terrible. It was way terrible. You know, people took it way seriously. I mean, I think they still do now, of course, because you know it's something that's never really went away. Even before YouTube even existed, it never really went away. It was always a thing of my company's better than yours, my system's better than yours, but they all do something great in their own way. And as a company, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. And the idea of like just it being one system could be great because it would also not have the need to be for the games to be crossplay. For instance, that's another thing that kind of came from like the COVID quote, well, the C word era, from that era where a lot of games started to become crossplay because of us not, you know, it became basically became a thing that became more necessary through that. And like I said, I think it kind of really did do a good thing. Like, you know, making Fortnite crossplay, making a lot of shooters crossplay. Even nowadays with games like Street Fighter 6 or you know Tekken, I believe is crossplay. Games like those all becoming crossplay have had their own great benefit as well to add in, like kind of like an advancement forward. It kind of actually helped in a way to move things forward, and it's good because now if that was to happen, it would be where if we had one system, no need for crossplay, and then also no need for it to be where I have to choose what system to pick just based off my friends or people I know, and rather than being heavily influenced, we're all going in the same direction. So if we're all going in the same direction, we're going to get the same thing. There's no need for any of this console war stuff. There's no need for me to have to pick and choose and say, what system should I get? Because all my friends have an Xbox, so I should get an Xbox rather than a PlayStation or vice versa. You know? So a lot of good could come from this for sure if it was to happen. Granted, it's just talk. You know, who knows how long it could be if it was to ever happen. If anybody ever seen Drake and Josh, there was the Sphere game system that I referenced to, which was like, when was this back in? Maybe 2012, 2015, maybe. Was it? When did Drake and Josh come out? Somewhere back in that time. But anybody who watched Drake and Josh hopefully remembers the Sphere game system. And everybody was like, oh, what if this actually happened in the future? And now this guy's actually mentioning this as like possibly wanting to do this as an actual idea. And I'm not exactly opposed to it. A lot of good could come from it. But in reality, will it happen? No idea. But it would be cool because then it would kind of streamline everyone and everything, you know, all at the same time. So I'm never necessarily against change, but certain things are just tradition. You know, it's trying to tradition to hate on one system and not the other. I mean, at the end of the day, I've done it too. I've participated in it, especially when I was younger. And I was like, you know, it was more or less just kind of like, I've always eventually gotten every system in the first place. So it was like, it don't even freaking matter anymore. It don't matter no more. You know, because there's always something on every system that I want. And even when I try to funnel in on just one system, when sales hit and all this shit happens, it's like, okay, screw it. I'm going to get it regardless. So it doesn't even matter. I'm going to have all of them eventually. All right. But that's my thoughts now. I mean, if you have any